Smartphone photography has evolved a lot from what it was when the first smartphones were launched. Nowadays, smartphones aim to produce images that are comparable quality to professional cameras. However, in the last 1 or 2 years, smartphone camera hardware has sort of reached a peak, and most companies have been trying to improve their photos using software. For example, Google introduced a revolutionary level of computer photography where the camera, together with the software, produces a better image than it would a raw image. And Samsung is very likely going to do the same. This is where the Sony XPERIA XZ4 comes in. This phone has 3 cameras. A 52 megapixel main camera, a secondary 16 megapixel camera, which is with a telephoto lens, and a third 0.3 megapixel depth sensing camera. And in this video I am going to explain how this combo has the chance to outperform any other smartphone on the market by analyzing it using the standard camera specifications. First, let's start with the sensor. Typically, smartphone camera sensors are much smaller than big DSLR sensors, and that makes sense. Smartphones are much thinner and much lighter. However, the smaller the sensor, the less light it gets. So a large DSLR sensor is going to be able to have a lot of input from the outside world, while a small smartphone camera sensor has to work with far less light from the same image. This is where the 52 megapixels are helpful. When the sensor does not have enough light, the image has noise, and you have probably noticed that a lot, especially in smartphones in darker conditions. The thing about 52 megapixels is that you can combine every 4 pixels together and still have a 13 megapixel high resolution image. 13 megapixels is more than enough, and it is what's used on many flagships. For example, the iPhone XR has 12 megapixel camera, and the Google Pixel 3 also has a 12 megapixel camera. By combining the 4 pixels together, even if 2 of them are noisy and don't have an actual color representation of the real conditions, the other 2 can still provide enough data to create an actual usable pixel. This way, the 13 megapixel compressed image is going to be much crisper than if you just shoot it with a regular 13 megapixel lens. I think that if Sony executes this properly, it could be brilliant, and it could probably produce the best night images, even better than the Google Pixel 3, because it will not be using software, but the actual image will be good, and with software you will be able to make it even better. The next specification that I want to talk about is the lens. And one main feature of actual camera lenses, big DSLRs or even pocket cameras, is optical zoom. The thing about optical zoom is that it is lossless, unlike digital zoom, where it's basically like opening Microsoft Paint and cropping image. With optical zoom, you lose no resolution, because the zoom is provided from the lens. Getting that lens zoom, however, requires moving parts in a camera, and you pretty much can't have many moving parts in a smartphone camera, and certainly not enough to have actual zoom. This is why there is a second camera with a telephoto lens. The telephoto lens is zoomed in by default, so when you want to take a picture up close, the telephoto lens will be used instead of the main one. Now, it's probably not going to be more than 2 or 4 times zoom, so it's not going to be anything as strong as, let's say, 30 times optical zoom. But still, it is an advancement that smartphone photography has actually been doing for a while, and most companies have been using just 2 times optical zoom. I think that Sony would also go for that. If they go for 4, that would be absolutely awesome, but I'm not sure if it's even easy to do or possible hardware wise. So yeah, this is the zoom lens, which is the alternative to the moving parts on a normal lens, which can zoom. The next specification I want to talk about is focus, and specifically autofocus. I hope that Sony implements good enough software to utilize the third lens, which is a depth sensing lens, to focus images better. Autofocus is something that we sort of take for granted, but a lot of the time it just does not nail the focus or doesn't focus the thing we want at all. Sony has been doing some really good focus technology on their cameras, and not only on the big ones but also on the pocket cameras. A notable example of this is the RX100 Mark VI. This is arguably the best pocket camera in the world, and it has incredibly fast autofocus. So therefore, I think that Sony can definitely provide an autofocus feature which is fast enough and will be at least on the level of the advertised Samsung or iPhone stuff. iPhone doesn't really advertise it, Samsung does, and yeah, but they are both pretty fast. The next very important stat is stabilization. At first, smartphones were using electronic image stabilization, which is once again inferior when compared to optical image stabilization. However, lately phones have started using optical image stabilization with a small jiggling mechanism on the camera that helps it kind of compensate, like a gimbal, and it compensates the shaking of your hand. And I hope that Sony is going to do some good implementation of their optical steady shot technology in the XPERIA XZ4, and that should solve pretty much problems with the stabilization. Of course, they're not going to be able to make it as stable as like an actual gimbal, but at least reduce the camera shake. It would be nice. Another thing that is very important for a camera is the video quality it can shoot. Typically when it comes to smartphones, iPhones have been undoubtedly the best in that. They have superior stabilization and color accuracy, they just produce very good videos. However, I think that Sony, if they try, like, they can accomplish it. It's just a matter of how important trying to do this is for them. And I think that with the XZ4 being a very big leap from the XZ3, unlike the XZ3, it was a pretty close phone to the XZ2, not really worth an upgrade. And I hope that they are going to at least get on the same level as the iPhones. And if they get on the same level with the regular video, it will be overall a superior camera, because as you probably know, Sony smartphone cameras have been able to capture 960 frames per second. And yeah, I'm pretty hyped for that camera. It might be a reason for many people to buy that particular phone, and it would be great if Sony uses the opportunity, because they really have the knowledge, they have the engineers, they have what is needed to produce that awesome camera. And yeah, make sure to subscribe for more videos related to Sony, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.